It's 9/11.
On 9/11.
I know, that's weird, right?
And this is where we start recording. Hello and welcome to Wyrd Wessex. I'm Andy.
That is too freaky. As I literally, my brain worked that out as I said that. I was like, it's 9/11. On 9/11. My God. It's a conspiracy. What the fuck? Anyway, what are we talking about today? Oh, no, wait, that's your line. Yeah, I'm Craig.
What are we talking about today, Craig?
So it's 9/11 on 9/11 somewhere, right?
That's
It's got to
it.
happen every 9/11. There's a 9/11. There was two
Yeah.
today. That was the second one. But it's just weird that we started recording at 9/11. Anyway,
What are we talking about today, Craig?
ghost ships.
That sounds smelly. Is it connected to the ghostly toilet that flushes in York?
Ships, Andy. I said ships, not.
Ah. All right, that sounds, I mean, kind of horrifying, I guess. It can, with the potential to be, but less grotty. I don't know. I'll get my sea legs on then.
I mean, I wouldn't. Certainly not after this. Yeah, so today we're casting off from the safety of the shore and stepping into a world of maritime mystery and chilling folklore. We'll be talking about spectral vessels that sail the high seas, often with no crew, or phantom ships that vanish without a trace, only to be spotted decades or even centuries later. And we couldn't possibly begin anywhere else but with the most famous of them all, the Mary Celeste.
It's December the 4th, 1872, and the Canadian brigantine Dei Gratia is sailing. At around 1 in the afternoon, Captain David Morehouse noticed another vessel about 6 miles away heading unsteadily towards them. This other ship was none other than the Mary Celeste. It was under partial sail, some of the sails being still unfurled, some being pinned up, and its weird, wobbly movements made Captain Morehouse think something was definitely wrong with this ship. It looked like a ghost coming out of the fog, and so he summoned a small boarding party led by his first mate, Oliver Deveau, to investigate, and what they found there was deeply unsettling.
Now all I've got in my head is yo, but I haven't got a deep enough voice to do it. I was like, do you think we could get away with inserting that song? Probably not. So imagine being the one to have to climb aboard. That would be so eerie. The sails were in poor condition and some were missing entirely, and much of the rigging was damaged. The main hatch was secure, but the two smaller hatches were wide open. The ship's single lifeboat was gone, but what was left behind was the most bizarre part. The cargo, nearly 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol, was almost intact. Almost all of it was there, save for 9 barrels that were found empty, but with no signs of a leak.
And that's not all. The captain and crew's personal belongings were completely untouched. The last entry in the ship's log was dated around 8 a.m. on November the 25th, 9 days earlier. It was a perfect snapshot of a crew that had definitely left in a hurry.
And for me, the most unsettling detail is the fact that it looked like they had simply gotten up and left. A meal was still set at the table. I mean, there was no signs of a struggle, no blood, no distress signal. They just vanished.
Yeah, and I mean, it gets even more tragic. The crew wasn't just made up of men. Captain Benjamin Briggs' wife, Sarah, and their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia, were also on board. Finding their personal belongings untouched, including Sarah's sewing machine and the child's toys, it just makes their story so much sadder and more haunting. On the deck as well, they found a makeshift sounding rod left there and abandoned.
Yeah, just to be clear, Andy, in this case, that's a measuring instrument used in shipping to determine the depth of water under a ship or the level of liquid in a ship's tank, not a sex toy, which is inserted into the urethra.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, what happens at sea stays at sea. But anyway, the mystery was so great that when the Dei Gratia brought the Mary Celeste into Gibraltar, a very suspicious Attorney General named Frederick Solly Flood, a fantastic name, started a salvage hearing. Flood was convinced there had been a crime. He claimed to find cuts on the ship's bow and stains on the captain's sword that might have been blood. He focused on his suspicion bringing the Dei Gracia's crew into his sights, suggesting they had murdered the Mary Celeste crew for the salvage prize.
Wait, so the famous ghost ship mystery started off as a gruesome murder case? That's really not what I was expecting.
Well, the thing is, Flood's theories quickly fell apart. Scientific analysis showed that the bloodstains were not blood at all, and a US Navy report concluded the cuts on the bow were just from natural actions at sea.
All right, so if it wasn't a crime, what was it?
Well, there's one theory that not only the most plausible, but proper weird. It revolves around a flammable cargo. The theory is that some barrels may have been leaking, creating a buildup of flammable vapor in the hold. And a recent experiment with a scale model of the hold showed that such vapor could cause a spectacular flash-like explosion without leaving any scorching or fire damage, just whoom, straight through, you know. The crew, hearing a sudden loud sound and smelling the fumes, would have panicked and feared an imminent explosion. They likely just would have launched a lifeboat and tethered it to the ship to wait for the danger to pass. In that theory, the most tragic part is that a sudden squall or gust of wind could have come in, sort of snapping the line and basically sending the lifeboat adrift. The Mary Celeste would have sailed on, but the crew were lost at sea forever.
Yeah, abandoned by their own ship. That's a cruel twist of fate. But of course, this is a show about weird things, so there are other theories as well, right?
Do they happen to have anything to do with aliens?
Well, some commentators have pointed the finger at everything from giant octopuses to sea quakes and even alien abduction, since the ship was found with all the belongings on board. Yeah, so we've talked about the Mary Celeste, but that's not the only ghost ship to haunt the high seas. A little over 40 years later, another truly baffling mystery would emerge from the treacherous waters off North Carolina, the so-called graveyard of the Atlantic.
Yeah, this is the story of the Carol A. Deering. On January the 31st, 1921, the five-mast schooner was spotted grounded on the notorious Diamond Shoals, which is a truly dangerous stretch of coastline off Cape Hatteras. It was a ghostly derelict, eerily similar to the Celeste. All the sails are still set, but the crew were nowhere to be found. The lifeboats were missing, and so were the ship's logbook and navigation equipment. The entire crew, captain, his son, and 9 sailors, had just simply vanished.
But it gets weirder though, doesn't it? There was a last contact with the ship just 2 days before the discovery. The Cape Lookout lightship saw the Deering pass. The man who held them didn't sound like the captain, and he had a foreign accent. The lightship keeper also noted that the crew looked strange and were milling about on the quarterdeck, a spot usually reserved for the captain and officers. And they said they had lost their anchors in a storm.
Yeah, this whole thing sort of sounds like this kind of eerie premonition of tragedy that would come later, you know. So what were the theories? Same as before? Piracy?
Funnily enough, piracy was one of the main theories, especially given that prohibition was in full swing. A message in a bottle was even found claiming the ship was captured, but it was later revealed to be a forgery. The US government actually launched a large-scale investigation, but no definitive evidence of a crime was ever found.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, you know, you don't, apart from obviously we do have modern day piracy off Somalia and places like that, but, you know, you don't think of piracy in like the 1920s. Oh. Oh, but this is where the truly weird stuff comes into it, though. The ship was a victim of the Bermuda Triangle kind of mythos, but the more grounded yet still unsettling theories involve a chilling possibility for anyone at sea in that sort of time, which is mutiny. The captain, W.B. Wormel, was known to have a difficult relationship with his crew, and his first mate had actually been fired right before the final voyage. It's entirely plausible a mutiny occurred and the crew either threw him overboard and took the lifeboats, or they were all lost at sea after abandoning the ship in a squall.
But if you think those stories are strange, just wait until you hear about the MV Joyita.
Oh, yes. I was almost kind of, I kind of knew this one would come up, but this is one that does creep me out a little bit.
Yeah, this is the story of a fishing boat that was converted into a commercial vessel. It left Samoa in October of 1955 on what should have been a short trip to the Tokelau Islands, but she never arrived. All 25 people on board, crew and passengers, just vanished into thin air. And it gets even more baffling. 5 weeks later, she was found over 600 miles away from where she'd last been seen.
Yeah, and it was a mess. It was waterlogged, half submerged, and sort of listing heavily. The engines were off, and a key piece of the cooling system was missing. The most baffling part, though, the lifeboats and life rafts were gone, but a whole bunch of supplies were still on board. Stuff that you would have taken with you, you know, food, medical supplies, even like some of the cargo that would have been useful. As if they had all they needed to survive there, but they just either vanished or decided not to take it with them, you know?
It gets even more tragic. The initial investigation concluded that the crew had abandoned the ship, but couldn't figure out why. The most logical theory, if you can call it that, is that the Joyita started taking on water due to the missing engine part. The captain might have thought the ship was about to sink, and so he made the call to abandon it.
And that's where the tragedy lies, right? If the crew had just stayed on board, the ship was unsinkable because it had this cork-lined hull. It could list, it could sink a little bit, you know, and like lie lower in the water, but it would have just floated. It still would have stayed afloat. But they were lost to the sea after abandoning ship in these lifeboats without taking these much-needed things. And interestingly, there was a doctor on board. And apparently one of the things that was left behind was his entire medical kit, which you would think he would take with him. But in that medical kit, with all the stuff still in there, the stethoscope and scalpel and all that, was also a bunch of blood-stained bandages. So, oof.
Yeah, what makes it even more weird, though, is there are theories that were tossed around, including that the crew was attacked by a Japanese fishing vessel and held for ransom.
A ransom for what?
Well, for years, people widely believed that a Japanese fishing vessel had attacked the Joyita, perhaps for valuable cargo. The theory were that the pirates took the crew and the most valuable items, but left the ship itself behind.
And I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? 'Cause not everyone always declares what cargo they've got if they're trying to keep it a bit under the radar, maybe. So it's not like looking at the lists of what they've been carrying would necessarily tell you everything that's on board. So we've talked about ships that vanish, but what about a ship that was abandoned and just kept on sailing? This is the story of the SS Beichimo.
All right, but wait a minute, Andy. Before we get into the realm of pure legend and folklore, I've got one more modern mystery for you, and one that's perfect for this Halloween special.
Oh, let me guess. Is it a ship that sets sail on the spookiest night of the year?
Yep, you got it. This is the story of the High Aim 6. It was a Taiwanese fishing vessel that departed from its port on Halloween, 31st of October 2002. It was then found completely abandoned, drifting off the coast of Australia on the 8th of January 2003.
So another ghost ship with no crew?
Exactly. It was a proper nautical mystery. But when the Australian authorities boarded the vessel, there were no signs of a struggle. The crew's personal belongings were still there, and the ship had plenty of fuel and food, but all 10 crew members and the captain had simply vanished into thin air. The fishing lines were still out, all as if they'd just disappeared while in the middle of their work.
That's pretty chilling, that. So it's like they were just sort of Thanos snapped, erased.
Yeah, and it gets even more weird. The ship had been sighted a few days earlier with its engine still running, but when it was boarded, the engine was dead and the rudder was locked, leaving the ship to drift aimlessly. There were no lifeboats, no distress signal, and no bodies.
So what's the official theory for this one then?
Well, the most plausible theory is mutiny. Investigators found that the boat's engineer's phone had been used to make dozens of calls from Bali after the ship was abandoned. Indonesian police eventually tracked down one of the crew members who claimed that the captain and chief engineer had been killed and the crew had fled. But he wouldn't provide any details of how the murders were committed or what they did with the bodies. The mystery remains, and the High Aim 6 was eventually towed to shore and scrapped.
So that is quite unsettling, I guess. You know, you don't have to be supernatural. It's like you said before, like scariest things, people. Well, for the most part, and Vixana. So that sort of leads us to our next story, though, about a ship that wasn't lost at all, a ship that was abandoned, but just kept on sailing for decades on its own. As I said, this is the story of the SS Beichimo. The Beichimo was a cargo steamer built in 1914 that was used to trade furs up in the Arctic. In October 1931, it got trapped in the pack ice off the coast of Alaska. The crew tried to free it, but a powerful blizzard hit, and when it cleared, the ship was gone, and they all assumed it had sunk. The company even wrote it off as a total loss.
So they just gave up on it.
Yeah, like sometimes you'll raise a ship, it's still valuable even if just for the scrap, or sometimes you can put it back into action, but if it's lost up there, it's not worth getting back. So yeah, they gave up on it. But here's where it gets truly weird. The Beichimo didn't sink. An Inuit seal hunter spotted it a few days later, miles away from where it was lost. The crew tracked it down, but decided it was unlikely to survive the winter. They removed the most valuable furs and abandoned her for good. And that's kind of where its story truly actually begins.
Yeah, it gets pretty crazy. For the next 38 years, it was sighted dozens of times drifting alone without a crew. Sailors and explorers would spot it, board it, and then be driven away by bad weather or the sheer difficulty of trying to salvage a derelict ship. Locals even called it the ghost ship of the Arctic, as it seemed to resist all attempts at capture. It was a proper phantom vessel sailing itself through the ice for decades.
So cool. The last sort of final confirmed sighting was in 1969, 38 years after its first abandoned. I mean, that thing's bloody unsinkable. It was found frozen in the ice pack of the Beaufort Sea. It hadn't been seen since, and its ultimate fate remains one of the greatest nautical mysteries of the century, although I do really hope one day it just comes sailing out again,
And a bunch of ghosts jump off of it and help Aragorn to save. No point. Wrong story. Okay.
Did you know Tolkien filmed?
So, yeah, it's a bit of a story. A ghost ship that wasn't a ghost at all, just a very stubborn boat.
You can make a little cartoon like the boat that the little boat that could.
And it leads us perfectly from the realm of history into the world of legend, where the stories get even more chilling.
It is time for the proper weird stuff now, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The next ship on our list is one of the most famous and unsettling legends of the Arctic, the Octavius. The story goes that in 1761, a merchant ship left London for the Orient. On its return trip, the captain decided to risk it all and attempt the then unexplored Northwest Passage. A brave choice, but a fatal one, and the ship was never heard from again.
The Northwest Passage has ruined many a ship, so yeah. Never heard from again. At least that is what everyone thought. But a decade and a half later, in 1775, a whaling vessel called the Herald spotted a ship drifting in the icy waters off Greenland. The sails were torn, the rigging was tattered, and it looked like it had been out there for a very, very long time. They went aboard, and what they found was haunting. The entire crew was frozen solid below deck. The ship was a floating tomb. The captain was found in his cabin, frozen at his desk, it said with a pen still in his hand, and the ship's log open in front of him. And it gets even more horrific after that.
Let me guess. The last entry was chilling.
Dated 11th of November 1762, it simply read, "We have been stuck here for 17 days. This may be my last." The implication was that they had been dead for 13 years, and the ship had just drifted on through the entire Northwestern Passage on its own. A silent coffin in the ice.
Yeah, that's a true ghost ship, piloted by the wind and currents alone. And while the story is widely believed to be a legend, a mix of old sailing myths and real events, the sheer detail of it has kept it alive in the minds of sailors and storytellers for centuries.
Speaking of which, you cannot do a ghost ship episode without two vessels. The first one we've both spoken about, which is the Mary Celeste. The second is, of course, the king of all ghost ship legends, the Flying Dutchman. This isn't a story of a ship that we're missing, this is a story of a ship that can never go home. The legend most famously centres on a 17th century Dutch captain named Captain Wilhelm van der Decken.
Easy for you to say.
During a particularly violent storm near the Cape of Good Hope, another famous graveyard of ships, he made a fatal vow. He swore he would get his ship turned around in that cape, even as his wife lay dying, even if it took him until the Day of Judgment. For his blasphemy, he was cursed to sail the seas forever, and his ship often is shrouded in this mist or glowing with an eerie light.
The legend says that the curse also claimed his wife, and when his body was found, it had become mummified, yet he still walked the deck. The curse also became a terrible omen. Spotting the ship was said to predict disaster for any crew who saw it. The crew of the Flying Dutchman are often said to be spectral themselves, trying to send messages to loved ones who have long since died. That's kind of where the legend really gets its teeth, the idea of an actual cursed ship, not just a ghost. But are there any famous sightings of it, or is it all just, old sailor folklore?
Well, that is where we sort of start getting into the weird of it. While it's certainly folklore, there have been numerous recorded sightings, some of them from very credible sources. Perhaps the most famous was in 1881, when the future King George V of England, then a midshipman, claimed to have seen the ship while off the coast of Australia. His logbook entry from the time described a strange red light, which he said was glowing silhouette of this cursed vessel.
All right, so what's the official explanation for all of this? I mean, is it just a grand story?
Well, scientists and skeptics point to a phenomena called Fata Morgana, which is a type of mirage that's common in the area. It's caused by light bending through layers of air at different sort of temperatures and pressure levels, which can make a distant ship appear to be floating sort of above the water, or look distorted and very ghostly. But there's one more detail that makes this legend so compelling. Some historians believe that the legend of Flying Dutchman might have been inspired by a real-life captain, a man named Bernard Fokker, who was famous for his unusually sort of fast voyages from Holland to Indonesia. People believed he had made a pact with the devil to achieve this kind of speed. I just want to say as well that there is a absolute banger of a song by the Longest Johns about the Flying Dutchman. Definitely give that a listen.
Yo.
It's
not that one.
Not that one, no. But it does go into the detail about this ship seeing a storm coming in and a ship coming out of it with tattered sails, and they get a barrel floated to them, and the ship signals that they want them to take some messages on, which was quite common at the time. Like you could, you had flag signals for everything, and it was, can you take these on to port? And so they pick up the barrel, but then the storm just goes in and they race it back to port, and they manage to escape it. And the captain's like, "That's the Flying Dutchman that's after us. We got to get out of here." And they do open the barrel, and it's like full of letters that are like hundreds of years old, which it's a good story.
Okay, so we've talked about a ship that's cursed to sail forever, one that was found in the ice. But this next one, the Lady Lovibond, is even weirder because her haunting has a schedule.
Oh, I do like it when hauntings are organised. A schedule, like a reoccurring appointment with doom.
Yeah, pretty much. The story of the Lady Lovibond begins on Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day Eve, to be precise, the 13th of February, 1748. The captain, a newly married man named Simon Reed, was sailing off the coast of Kent in England with his new bride and a wedding party on board. But his first mate, a man named John Rivers, was also hopelessly in love with the captain's wife. And in a fit of jealous rage, while the wedding party was celebrating below deck, the first mate murdered the helmsman and seized the wheel. He then deliberately steered the ship onto the treacherous Goodwin Sands, a notorious sandbank off the coast of Deal. The ship was utterly destroyed, and everyone on board, including the captain, his bride, and the jealous first mate, perished.
How does the ship's ghost end up on a schedule, though?
All right, so the legend says that every 50 years, on the anniversary of its sinking, the ghost ship of the Lady Lovibond reappears sailing off the coast of Kent. Sailors and people watching from the shore claim to see the schooner as if it were brand new, sometimes even hearing the sounds of a celebration from within the vessel, just before it once again crashes into the Goodwin Sands.
Ooh, that is quite chilling. And it's not just a haunted ship; it's this terrifying loop. It's kind of like not just seeing it, but you imagine those spirits, for lack of a better term, on the ship, sort of reliving these final moments over and over again.
So the first alleged sighting was exactly 50 years after the tragedy in 1798. A captain of a nearby ship recorded in his log they had almost collided with a three-masted schooner. Subsequent sightings were reported in 1848, 1898 and 1948, which is a phenomenal pattern. Like, the last reported sighting was from Captain Bull Prestwick, who claimed he saw the schooner glowing with an eerie green light. It was so real he believed it was a real ship, but it was just the ghost.
Just the ghost. Nothing special. However, a lot of researchers have pointed out here that there are no contemporary records of the ship or the tragedy from the 18th century, with the earliest known published account appearing in the 1920s. So it's most likely a modern legend based maybe on some real life events all muddled together, like a lot of these things. Still, the story's reputation is so strong that people still gather on the shore of Kent every 50 years to see if she'll appear again.
Yeah, so when's the next one? I think I did try to work this out on the thing.
Well, it'll be in the 90, yeah, so it's 48 again.
Yeah, got a bit of a wait.
The
podcast is still going.
That's it. Even if it's not, if we're still living, we'll come back for that special.
Well, like, it's Interview with a Vampire. This is Interview with a Ghost Ship.
Yeah, that's it.
They don't say much except for
when you have told all your friends, you've told their friends and told their friends. We've got loads of listeners and got those big YouTube bucks. We will commission a ship. I don't think we will. The good ship, Wyrd Wessex.
I don't think we will.
No?
I mean, 5... So what are we looking at? Another 10, 20... 22 years. I should still be alive then.
In 22, I'm not going to be doing bullshit. Fucking, what are you talking about? It's like, how old are you, you miserable old git? You're like, in your early 40s. You're 40, right?
Nearly 42.
Nearly 42. There you
so
go.
So I'll be 64 when it comes around again.
Yeah.
You think you're going to be podcasting when I'm 64 and you're 28 or whatever you are?
Oh, bless you. Stop flirting. I know. So it's gone down from you know, if you're still alive to like if you're still podcasting. Well, that's a fair one. Depends if we make all those YouTube bucks. Maybe we'll hate it by then. We'll absolutely hate it. But
sorry, but
stay together for those big YouTube bucks.
It's just, the state of the world. I'm like 22 years. All right. So, what about a legend that's based on a very real, very tragic shipwreck that's even more chilling? It's the story of the SS Valencia. Oh, did you feel that? I felt that go down my back.
Valencia.
The Valencia was a passenger steamer that went down in a terrible storm off the coast of Vancouver Island in 1906, killing over 100 people. The tragedy itself was a nightmare, as the ship was stuck on a reef for nearly 40 hours while the waves slowly tore it apart, and rescuers were helpless to get near it. It was a true disaster, but it's what came after that makes the story so weird. The area where it sank is known as the Graveyard of the Pacific, and for years afterwards, people reported seeing something truly chilling. Survivors and local fishermen would report seeing a ghost ship, a shadowy vessel that looked exactly like the Valencia, stuck on the same reef with ghostly figures in the rigging waving for help.
And there is a legend of a nearby ship, the city of Topeka. Saw a phantom version of the Valencia with skeletons at the helm, signalling them just before it sailed straight into the rocks. There are also some stories from the Nucha North people a local First Nations community. They claim that just a few months after the sinking, a fisherman and his wife found a sea cave where a lifeboat had washed up with 8 skeletons inside. Local historians believe it was likely lifeboat number 5 from the Valencia. Due to the dangerous waters, it was never recovered, but it would be found years later.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, everybody. Oh, sorry, lifeboat, not Mambo.
Yeah, not Mambo.
Sorry. No,
Need a Valencia in my life. Sorry.
And that's where the story gets truly haunting. What makes the legend so real is that in 1933, 27 years after the wreck, lifeboat number 5 was actually... I'm singing it in my head, Andy.
I knew it. I just saw your face.
I was like, I can do this. I can get through it. No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe this is what people don't tune in for.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. I try and do it without thinking. It's in my head, though. Which is weird, because when we started off, I was all like, yo-ho. And now I'm like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hang on.
A staple of school discos everywhere.
Was it?
Yeah. I think so. No, it was a staple of shitty clubhouses in holiday parks.
I was going to say, you're slightly younger than me, and I'm like, I don't think we had that at the school disco.
It was always Barbie Girl.
Mm-hmm.
I'm blue, da-ba-dee-da-ba-da.
Ocean still insists that I put that on in the van.
Ha!
She loves Blue Dabba Dee. And
I do too.
And she loves... what was it she got me to put on the way to Butser? Oh, Britney Spears' Toxic. I'm addicted to you and you know that I'm toxic. Hate it. I fucking hate it. Get stuck in your head.
There's a band that does Britney Spears songs in the style of Metallica.
Yes. Right. Not Mambo number 5. So that's where the story gets truly haunting. What makes the legend so real is that in 1933, just 27 years after the wreck, lifeboat number 5 was actually found floating near the shore. It was in near perfect condition, a silent, bizarre piece of evidence that brought the legend to life.
Yeah, just finding that lifeboat afterwards, it's just kind of, not only is it that sort of real creepy sort of connection to it, but it does sort of... it does bring it to life, as you say. It's that stark reminder. This isn't just a weird, creepy legend. This is something that actually happened.
You know, like they made Law into a TV series, right?
Yeah.
So when they do Wyrd Wessex, the TV series, and it goes to that scene, and there's a guy stood on a beach, and the lifeboat's coming in, and then it just cuts to just his eyes, and it zooms in on his eyes like this. But as it does, is dun 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 dun. Everybody on the corner. So yeah, what about a haunting that's not just a story, a vessel that's been appearing for over 200 years, a terrifying spectacle that predates any modern legend? This is the fire ship of Northumberland Strait.
That's the name of my new prog band.
The Northumberland Strait is a vast stretch of water between Prince Edward Island and mainland Canada, and is home to a legend so deeply woven into its fabric that people have believed it for over 200 years. It's a terrifying and tragic story of a phantom vessel known simply as the Fire Ship.
Thousands of witnesses, from terrified sailors to local fishermen and families standing on the shore, have watched in horror as a 3-masted schooner appears out of nowhere in the swirling mist, engulfed in this bright red flame, all the way from bow to stern. It appears so real that people have launched their boats to help, only to watch it just vanish into nothingness as they get close. Unlike many of these ghost ships, there is no single agreed-upon tragedy tied to its name, but folklore offers a number of tantalizing possibilities.
So the most disturbing version of the legend says it was an old schooner carrying a mutinous crew who, after a rebellion, set their own ship alight to destroy the evidence. Others believe the crew was struck down by a terrible plague and the vessel was burned to stop it from reaching the shore. The ship's haunting in either case is said to be the crew's eternal punishment for their heinous acts. It's a ship that carries no one, yet is forever burning. A spectacular and chilling omen said to appear most often on stormy nights, and especially on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve.
And it's a taunt. People have raced to the scene only to find nothing. The most famous yet debunked sighting was in 1900, when an image of the ship was supposedly captured on film only for it to be revealed as a hoax. But the sheer number of consistent sightings, all telling the same core story of a vessel consumed by fire, is what makes this so hard to dismiss.
So what could it be? The scientific explanations are as varied as the tales of its origins. Scientists have pointed to everything from mirages caused by shifting air currents to a phenomenon known as St. Elmo's fire, where glowing plasma forms around the mast of a ship during thunderstorms. But even these are not enough to explain the full form of a burning schooner appearing so consistently.
Another theory, one that ties into British folklore, is the light is actually caused by ignis fatuus, or marsh gas. Sort of the origins for a lot of the will-o'-the-wisps kind of stories. But the problem is none of these single phenomena can account for a full burning ship, with rigging and masts being seen so clearly and for so long as well. The academic research on it suggests that the belief in the fire ship is a definite part of the local psyche. It's a story with no clear answers, and perhaps that's why it's so fascinating and it has endured for so long.
But if you think a burning ghost ship is strange, what about one that haunts the coast of New England, reliving its final moments over and over again? This is the story of the Palatine Light. The story says that in 1738, a ship called the Princess Augusta was carrying a group of German immigrants to a new life in America. But the crew, driven by greed and cruelty, allegedly steered the ship onto the rocks of Block Island off the coast of Rhode Island, murdering the surviving passengers and setting the ship on fire to cover up their crimes.
Yeah, it's a truly horrific tale of greed and murder on the high seas when, it's not just the seas you're at the mercy of, is it? It's the people taking you there. It's the people crewing the ship. These people in an environment that's unfamiliar to them, and it happens a lot in history, and no doubt still to this day. People do get killed, robbed by the people that they're supposed to be taking them safely from one place to another. The most horrifying part of this, though, is that the Princess Augusta left this enduring legacy in the form of a ghost light. For centuries, a mysterious glowing light has just been seen floating sort of eerily around Block Island. And this is said to be sort of this ghostly recreation of the burning ship.
So yeah, here's the most important part of the story from a weird perspective. Historians have confirmed that a ship named the Princess Augusta did indeed wreck there. But the gruesome details of murder and arson were added much later, evolving into a pure legend. It's a terrifying haunting that's a modern myth based on a real event.
So a light that's sort of most likely a natural phenomena became forever linked with a historical event that was made sort of even more tragic by the folklore. It just goes to show you how stories can sort of evolve and take on a life of their own, really, doesn't it? So we've talked about ships that vanish and ships that are cursed, but what about a ghost ship that's not actually a terrifying omen of some terrible thing to come, but a beautiful mythical vessel that carries the souls of the drowned? The Caliuche. This is a ghost ship from the local folklore of Chile, a stunning archipelago off the coast of Chile. According to the legend, it is a magnificent vessel that appears only at night. Now, the weird part about this is its appearance. It's described as this sort of truly beautiful ship, glowing with this brilliant white light. It has 3 towering masts and a spectacular sail, and it's always accompanied by the sounds of partying and people having a good time, music and laughter that echo across the water. But it's not just a surface ghost. The legend says that the Caliuche can sail underwater too, and appears and disappears in the blink of an eye, leaving nothing but a faint, lovely glow in its wake. The crew is just as mysterious as the ship itself. It's not a group of silent or moaning spectres, rattling chains and bones. Its crew are the spirits of those who have drowned at sea, rescued by the Calliope and its captain or captains, which are said to be a mermaid, a sea serpent, and a sea lion. In the daytime, the ship's inhabitants can transform into seals or seagulls, so they're sort of always around keeping an eye on the living.
So, from watery graves to skybound spirits, our journey continues with one of the most famous legends from French Canadian folklore. We've talked about ships that sail the seas, but what about a canoe that flies through the air?
This or is like the tale... you come off a rapids like really quickly, just
yeah,
jump in the shark there.
I went a bit Mario there. This is the tale of the chasse galerie, or the flying canoe. It's a story that perfectly blends the hardship of a fur trapper's life with a very dangerous deal with the devil. The story centers on a group of voyagers, the brave Courrier de Bois, who were out in the deep woods on New Year's Eve, hundreds of miles from their home. They were desperate to get back to their loved ones for the holiday celebration, so they decided to make a pact with the devil himself. He offered to let them ride in their canoe through the air, covering the great distance in just one night. It's a kind of classic deal with a very high price.
And the price was a steep one. The devil had a set of unbreakable rules. For the canoe to fly, they couldn't speak the name of God or any other holy words. They also had to avoid any crosses they might see on their journey, like those on church spires. And most importantly, not a single drop of liquor could touch their lips. Devil's straight edge, apparently. If they broke any of these rules, their souls would belong to him. The tale is often told with a group of trappers who were almost successful, only to fail at the very last moment due to a slip of the tongue or just, that little nip of rum that you don't think anyone's going to notice. It highlights the eternal struggle between human temptation and spiritual salvation, I guess. The flying canoe with its crew desperately trying to stay silent and sober become the sort of metaphor for the difficult journey, not that just they face, but, life itself, I suppose.
If I was told you can get home in one night, but you can't drink, I'd be like, should I leave the bottle of rum behind?
You know what I mean? It's like, no, I paid for this. I should take it. I really want some.
Also, there's no duty if I take it in the flying canoe, right?
That's it. They'll find a way.
Yeah. Anyway, the final story we're going to talk about, it's one that to this day has no explanation, and that's the mystery of the Orang Maiden. And I'll be honest.
I'm glad we're doing this one.
The whole script was based on this story, guys.
I mean, it is kind of the classic modern one. If you're thinking of a modern ghost ship, this is the one.
I like the Orang Maiden, and I've wanted to do it for a very long time, but I didn't know how, and here it is.
And again, it's one of those ones that actually does sort of, make me think, ooh, it is a little bit, yeah. I'll let you get on with it.
The story begins in June 1947 when several ships in the Strait of Malacca receive a worrying Morse code distress signal. The message was from a Dutch freighter, the Orang Maiden, and it was brief and utterly terrifying. It read, SOS from Orang Maiden. We float. All officers, including Captain, dead, lying in chart room and on bridge. Possibly whole crew dead. I die.
Oh, it's that last bit, isn't it? It's the last bit.
It's the pause and then the I die, right? Yeah, so that was it. The final words of a man witnessing the unimaginable, followed by a long, empty silence.
Now, this distress call was picked up by an American ship, the Silver Star, which immediately changed its course to go and assist. When they found the Orang Maiden, there was no sign of a struggle. The ship was utterly silent and just drifting alone. When the crew of the Silver Star went aboard, they were met with a sight that has haunted the sailors for decades.
Yo.
The entire crew were dead. Their bodies were just strewn across the deck, the bridge, the chart room, as it was said, and even in the galley. Now, their faces were frozen in positions of pure terror. Basically, yes. Craig is He's posturing in a way that they were found. But yeah, apparently
If I don't make a noise, then nobody sees that. So like,
exactly.
there you go.
There you go. Yeah. It said that they were twisted with these horrified, panicked, pained expressions on their faces. Eyes staring open, mouths gaping as if they'd died sort of mid-scream. It was a tableau of horror, absolute horror.
Yeah, but it gets worse. There were no visible injuries, no signs of what had killed them. Even the ship's dog was found, its body twisted and contorted, as if it had died in a violent struggle. A single unseen force had snuffed out every living thing on board, leaving no trace behind. Before the rescue team could even begin a full investigation, a fire broke out in the Orang Maiden's cargo hold. The crew of the Silver Star barely had time to get back to their own vessel before the ghost ship exploded in a fiery eruption and sank, taking any and all evidence with it.
So what happened? Theories have ranged from a natural gas leak from the cargo to carbon monoxide poisoning. Some have even suggested that the ship was a cover for a secret cargo of nerve gas, which could explain the horrific look on the crew's faces in death. But here's the weird part of it all. The part that sort of proves this enduring power of these tales. The story of the Rowing Maiden has no official record. No ship by that name is listed in any official maritime registry, and the earliest known account of the story appeared in a 1952 article.
Things are getting strange and starting to worry. Things are getting strange for more. No, sorry. All right. No, it's almost certain that this terrifying ghost ship is nothing more than an urban legend, a sailor's yarn that has been told and retold so many times that it's become real in the minds of millions. It's a perfect example of a story with no clear answers, and it just goes to show that some of the most compelling and terrifying mysteries don't need evidence to live on.
Yeah, and I mean I don't think that necessarily all of these stories are true. I think a lot of them are, these tall tales, but like with any legend, a lot of it is based on reality, right? And even the most experienced sailor, possibly more than you and I, you respect the sea, but it's also a scary place. I mean, I'll be honest now,
Yeah,
like I've got a few phobias, maybe some more rational than others, but like I love the sea, I love the power of the sea, but it scares the shit out of me. Like
absolutely.
seriously, it is terrifying. Because
Yep.
you are not in your like literally. I don't. I've got mates that go swimming off, just off the beach down in Bournemouth at night. I don't even like swimming at night. Mainly that's a sensible thing. Like current pulls you out. There's no lifeguards, no one around. But like
Yep.
there is something unsettling about it as well. And I think just looking at that and knowing that power from your deck is pretty, sort of worrying and unsettling, and just it gives you a sense of unease. But then when you take into consideration those vessels that go across those safe harbors in those churning seas, and the idea that that comes to haunt you, I kind of, even though I don't fully understand it, not being a salty sea dog, I get it. I think it makes
I mean,
sense.
what's the deepest sea you've ever been on?
I don't, to be honest, I haven't been in boats that often. I've been on the ferry to France. I've been on the ferry to the Isle of Wight. That's about it, really.
Yeah, okay. So we did, when we went to Norway, we came from Norway to Denmark, which has a high-speed ferry. And that is when you're in the middle of that, you're moving fairly fast, but when you're in the middle, it's just sea everywhere and nothing
Yeah,
else. You can kind of see how you could just disappear if something went wrong.
yeah, exactly. There are so many wrecks that we have no idea where they are.
You're
You
saying
know,
when you're like on a plane though, and you look down at the sea and you're like, oh, look how tiny that ship is down there. Like
right?
a ship
It's
is
just this
nothing.
vast expanse, and I've been over the Atlantic a few times, and just looking down and just how big and wide and desolate that sea is.
And
You
then
know,
add to that the fact that a lot of these stories come pre proper tracking, like modern tracking.
Yeah, you'd have no idea, It's like
Someone
the
leaves and they're just gone, and you hope they arrive.
Ouroboros. You got the Ouroboros and the Terror, the two ships that went to sail the Northwest Passage and were both lost. All the crew, everyone just gone, and they found them a little while ago. And a real creepy as shit one is, I think it's the Terror, it might be the other one, but the one of them is pretty much they got blocked in pack ice, and there was some local Inuit tales that talked about it. But one of them broke up, but one of them just pretty much just went straight down into the water. And they've put like little remote vessel, like little remote submersibles in there. And there's like obviously being on a ship, you've got like crockery and stuff, but you've got bars going across to keep it, from sliding about when you're at sea. So they stayed in place when it went down. So there's literally like plates on the walls. And in true horror story fashion, the only room they haven't been in yet is the captain's room because the door's shut. But they're saying they'd really love to get in there because if they can somehow delicately take the captain's log out, they can find out a lot more and somehow preserve it. There's a lot more they could find out about what happened to it. I mean, they know the rough idea. They found graves. They did try and like yomp across the ice and across the land, and basically they all died. But
Spoiler alert.
yeah, there's a great like supernatural-esque drama about it as well. It's over like 3 or 4 episodes or something. But yeah, it's just it made me think because I know the captain's wife sent out like had a bit of money, obviously. She funded like 3 or 4 expeditions to go and find them. And
Yeah.
without tracking, without any idea of where they've been, they found pretty much nothing. I think that's when they started to find the graves and stuff like that, and the stories from the locals. But yeah, it was just lost, and just the idea of this ship down there, pretty much whole, is you know because it's only accessible a certain amount of times a year because it's so often covered by ice and the lack of sunlight permeating and the lack of life in that bit of the sea. It's
Yeah.
actually preserved incredibly well. But just looking at photos of that and footage, even that just gives me a bit of a shiver. It's quite chilling.
Yeah. I don't know. There is something. I said this on Triangles, right? I'm never going to see again. They do say that drowning's a good way to go, and I'm like,
You get that
nobody
euphoric
that's
thing,
ever
apparently.
died has ever survived, right?
Yeah, that's it. Well, I don't know. You do get people that technically drown, but then get brought back, like if they're pulled out and resuscitated. Maybe they're the ones
Yeah.
to ask. I think it sounds horrific. You know, it's yeah, not something I'd want to experience ever.
Mm.
But yeah,
No, there's anything about choking or drowning that just makes me be like, "Yeah,
yeah, it's
maybe
and
I
then you got
died that way in a previous life."
the
Traumatized.
sharks.
I think I'd want the sharks.
I don't know, getting ripped apart.
It's
That's
quicker,
painful
actually.
as well as terrifying. Whereas hopefully the drowning's just less painful. But yeah, long story short, the sea is terrifying as hell, and I don't plan on going on the sea until 1940. Sorry, 2000 to go time traveling 2048.
No, because at that point we just need to watch the coast.
Oh yeah, we don't even have to go out there.
We just
Oh
watch
well,
it burn.
yeah, fair enough,
Mm.
sorted. But yeah, that about wraps it up for the episode. I think you got our thoughts on pretty much everything there. Let us know what you think,
Yes.
and yeah, do you want to do socials bit?
No?
All right, fair enough. Follow us on social media if you like, if you don't already. At Wyrd Wessex on every platform apart from Instagram, where it's Wyrd_Wessex. Or head to our website at www.weirdwessex.co.uk. And as always, until next time, stay weird.